Welcome to the Smith and Rowland Show. Let's join our host, Alan Smith and Jeff Rowland.
It's time for the Smith and Rowland podcast, and I know the world is waiting with bated breath for our constant flow of wisdom and analysis on the world's events and upon the condition of the universe. Rest easy. We're about to give you the truth. Now, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Alan Smith.
The center.
That was a good one.
Awesome. I'll tell you what.
That was just a good one.
That one just rolled right on out there, so it had
really
to be
did.
true.
You know it had to be true. There's no doubt about it.
There you go.
How are you today?
We're doing good. You know, talking about truth here, we're trying to get through. It's not even so much the disinformation, Jeff, as it's information that's so twisted and squirrely, and I don't know how to put it under any other category other than true witchcraft. When you speak with forketh tongue, then you've got some witchcraft going on. And if we call a spade a spade, a lot of this 98% of this news that's out here today and stuff is nothing but manipulative witchcraft as far as I'm concerned.
That's exactly right.
Because it's such a spin on truth, it's really and truly hard to have a non-biased broadcast of any type. Other than the Smith and Rowland show,
that's right. I started to say,
but we're not. I can't say we're non-biased. I'm definitely biased.
I will say, for those who know me, they know that I am completely non-biased. I'm an equal opportunity offender. I will offend both sides at the drop of a hat. As a matter of fact, I will look for a reason to offend both sides at the drop of a hat. So I rest easy.
Yeah, that's the reason they'll run you back through a political etiquette school. So that we can get this stuff politically correct in your vocabulary and in your great orientations of conversation.
Well, whereunto, semicolon, I would have to say, my analysis is most of the time just hitting the nail right on the head. That's the way I'd put it.
Well, I would have agreed, but the semicolon threw me off. I mean, they're throwing so many symbols in their hashtag semicolon. I mean, I don't even hardly know what anybody's talking about. But
most people have no clue what I'm talking about and would say that I don't know what I'm talking about. However, what I say does make sense to me.
Well, that's where, the answer to your however from the listening audience is my.
Well, they call me Jeff semicolon Rowland hashtag. So that's what I've been called, before.
We got one piece of feedback here that you called Jethro.
Yeah.
And I was called Huckleberry.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't understand how,
Jethro and Huckleberry show.
And yeah, that's right.
Well, enough of that. But the reason I was saying it's so much witchcraft, Jeff, is I'm going to give you an article here. It's such a twist that it goes into witchcraft because it starts creating a facade or a premise of conversation off of something that's not. It's like a lot of people study the scriptures and they'll say, well, God didn't say no to this. So since God didn't say no in the Bible to something, then you create a doctrine of a yes because God didn't say no.
Right.
That's witchcraft. He's trying to manipulate what's not said to say something. So here we are now in this article of Dr. Michael Brown, which we'll use some of his articles. Truth is, we trust his articles, even though sometimes we're critics of his articles. But we're way more for Dr. Michael Brown.
Yeah, boy, I am.
We think he does. He thinks he does a good job. But the title of this article by him, Jeff, is "How Should We Respond to European Recognition of a Palestinian State?" How should we respond to a European recognition of a Palestinian state? Well, the first way we respond and say, well, Europe, you're idiots. That's the first way we respond.
That's right.
I mean, how do you recognize a Palestinian state when there's not one?
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. They're trying to create a truth based off of what's not.
Yeah,
and so they're trying to me. I'm going to show you why this is witchcraft. It says, how shall we respond to a European state? Well, you're having faith, and you're using the word faith, substance to things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You're perverting faith for a bad thing. You're perverting faith to be used, and the twist on it is witchcraft. It has to try to use a biblical term or a spiritual term of faith, but using it in a bad light. And to me, that is witchcraft. Truck driver Rowland, what do you think?
Well, one thing I'd say is to even make the statement that there is a Palestinian state is to legitimize a terrorist government as something that you're going to recognize and carry on diplomacy with. To coincide with what you're saying is witchcraft, the demonic outlook of such an event as legitimizing a Palestinian government run by Hamas, a demonic outlook of that is to say that you are for the Antichrist coming into power and setting up a truce treaty between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And it's all over the land. It's a land grab because Satan don't want God's name on God's land. That's all that is. So it is demonic at its root. There's no other way to look at it than that. When you legitimize a terrorist government that is a Christ-denying, Bible-destroying government, and you're going to legitimize that government and give it political power, is complete and utter demonic foolishness. And any nation that does that, and I will even say that to America, when America wants to tout what they called a two-state solution, that is utter ridiculousness. I think, Alan, and you respond to this, but I think that puts us in line with bringing a curse upon our own nation when we do that.
Well, I think you'll put it in hyperdrive. And the direction that our country's headed now, Jeff, if we would agree to such a thing as what these nations of Norway, Spain, and Ireland, who has done it. There again, Norway, Spain, Ireland, they announced their intentions to recognize Palestine as a Palestinian state. So to do this, and this was 8 days ago. Now, Israel has already pulled its ambassadors from Norway, Spain, and Ireland because they, have made this statement. I think, Jeff, that what we have happening, and to try to respond to your question there, for us to agree to such a thing. And let me say this right quickly. Jeff, I'm blown away at all the protests around the world in favor of Palestine going in on hand gliders and machine guns and shooting innocent people. I think for people to agree that was, of course, now they say, well, Israel's going into the Gaza and they've done the same thing. There's a difference when you come over here shooting first. That's different. And also the Gaza Strip's a little bit of a no man's land anyway, but still, yet it's so beyond me how you can embrace and endorse people coming in on these hand gliders, machine guns into concerts and mowing people down. How in the world you can get past? See, everybody jumps that little bit of information. You can't jump that information. That's what started this. You can't jump over it. You have to deal with it.
That's exactly
You have to deal with that first before you go on. Is that right or is that wrong?
Yeah.
And if that's the behavior you have, then you have to respond. You can't give them a pot of flowers. They invaded you. Israel didn't invade the Gaza. They were invaded by Hamas. So when you have to put a stop to such behavior. But anyway, the way it's twisted now we have 3 countries. I'm like, what are these countries thinking? I thought Ireland had more sense than that. I really thought Spain did. Norway, But I really thought, I can't imagine how they announced that was their intentions to recognize that Palestinian state. Let me read to you what Dr. Brown said here is, how should we respond? Comment he has. The leaders of these 3 countries are calling for 2 states living side by side in peace and security. Oh, that's cute. With mutual security guarantees. And Ireland's dream is being that Israel and Palestine children May 28, 2014 will grow up in the neighbors at peace. Israel's response was harsh and swift, with Minister of Foreign Affairs Israel Katz describing it as the Irish Norwegian folly. That's how the name he's given it. The Irish Norwegian folly. Katz claimed in a post on X that the announcement undermines Israel's sovereignty and endangers its security, stating today's decision sends a message to the Palestinians and the world. Terrorism pays. I agree with that statement. After the Hamas terror organization carried out the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. After committing hideous sexual crimes witnessed by the world, these countries chose to reward Hamas and Iran by recognizing a Palestinian state. So I totally agree, Jeff. This is making a statement that terrorism pays. And of course, they're not calling Hamas terrorists. They're calling them patriots.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what you're doing. If you're legitimizing their government, you're calling them patriots. There's no doubt about that. I agree with you. I don't know how you jump over the initial invasion of Hamas fighters into Israeli territory. I hope people listen to that part of the article you just read, where it caused the greatest mass casualty event in Israel since the Holocaust. Now, just consider that for a minute. And the world is up in arms because Israel is defending themselves and saying we're no longer going to allow Hamas fighters to dwell on our southern border. Well, you can't blame them for that. And furthermore, this thing about a two-state solution, it drives me insane. It drove me insane when George Bush did it. It was wrong when George Bush did it. It's wrong today. That's the same thing as saying in America, okay, we're going to call for a two-state solution where California and the rest of America live at peace. It's the same thing. I don't understand how that proper thinking people could do that or arrive at those conclusions unless there is demonic delusion that's blocking their path from seeing truth.
Yeah, there has to be. Yeah.
There has to be. Barack Obama used to call for Israel to go back to 1967 borders. If they did, there wouldn't be no Gaza.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'm just stating that Israel has time and time again given land away for this utopian idea the world has about Middle East peace when it comes to Israel. Well, Israel wants peace. They would love to be able to dwell in their land safely and securely and with peace. But they can't if you have terrorist organizations operated by Iran that's constantly bombing them and trying to drive people. You know, here's something that don't get talked about a lot, Alan. We have that mess going on in the Gaza Strip. To the northern side, Hezbollah has run out 80,000 Israelis out of the northern regions of Israel by their bombs. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just another war. It's another front on the war that nobody's talking about. And while everybody's attention is on Hamas and in the southern border, Hezbollah at the northern border is doing the same thing. This war is not going to be over just because Israel decides to pull out of Gaza. They're trying to get rid of the Hamas fighters.
Jeff, there's an interesting article that tags with this article from Michael Brown. I'm making this connection here. The title of this article, and it's by Raymond Ibren, the title is How Hamas Plagiarizes Hitler. Now, that's an interesting statement. Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and other jihadists routinely lift phrases and ideas from Mein Kampf. You know, that's that book that Hitler wrote. Now, listen to this, Jeff. An Arabic copy of Mein Kampf was reportedly found on the body of a slain Hamas terrorist. While holding this copy up during an interview, Israeli President Isaac Heroza said, "This is Adolf Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, translated into Arabic. This is the book that led to the Holocaust and the book that led to World War II. The terrorists wrote notes, marked the sections, and studied again the ideology of Adolf Hitler to hate the Jews, to kill the Jews, to burn and slaughter Jews wherever they are. As it happens, now this is a commentary of the author Raymond here. As it happens, many years ago, I conducted a deep dive into asserting how similar the writings of Islamic terrorists in the guise of Al-Qaeda were to the writings of Hitler in Mein Kampf. Out of it came 4,500-word article, first published in 2007. Then he goes on to cite that article and how many parallels there are. He's just saying that they are following the playbook of Hitler is what Hamas is doing. So we'd have to say, too, Jeff, that as the Holy Bible is to us, the Holy Scriptures of the Spirit, Mein Kampf is an unholy book of the dark side to breed and to lead in this destruction of the Jewish nation.
Absolutely.
Now, I submit that to you, as I think we need to take note of that.
Well, and let me tell you, in what you're saying there, the conflict between the dark side and the kingdom of heaven is going to continue on this earth until it culminates in Jesus Christ coming back and establishing his kingdom on the earth. There will not be lasting peace in that land until such time as Jesus comes down and rules and reigns on the earth. So preaching repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand is just as in order today as it was in the days of Christ. If that message is true, then it stands to reason that we have a lot to repent of. And to call Hamas and Hezbollah to repentance is the right answer. To preach the gospel to those people is the right answer. To do those things is the right answer. But to allow them to legitimize their government for actual political clout is to align yourself with the person of the Antichrist that's trying to destroy the nation of Israel and set up his kingdom.
Right. Well, to be able to recognize also, Jeff, that Hamas and how they have printed in Arabic the Adolf Hitler's book Mein Kampf. I mean, it's circulating through in hard copies through all of those organizations on how to hate the Jews, how to kill the Jews, how to burn the Jews. To not make the statement and recognize that this is so unholy.
Right.
And we've already seen this playbook Mein Kampf run one time. We've already run it one time in World War II, Hitler, Germany, then with the Jews. We've already seen this playbook played out. And you can see how the interest of Hamas and the interest of this war that's going on there is not so much about land. It is about land, Jeff, but it's about all the land. They don't want to live in a two-state. They want a one-state.
That's exactly right.
And that's a Palestinian state.
That's exactly right.
And if you don't see that, and you're going to keep compromising until you finally fall off over the edge.
Doesn't it amaze you, Alan, that Satan keeps running the same cycle over and over and over and over? And you would think that because he does the same thing, that we simple humans would catch on to it, but we don't. The delusion is so real. And I think, we could do a whole podcast on how real delusion is. Even though it's fantasy, even though it's not real, it's so real. The delusion is so real that we keep falling for the same lies over and over and over again. And I think that this, when Jesus said, flee to the mountains, when he said, pray that your flight not be in winter, and when he said, marvel not that they're going to hate you, they hate me. All of these things that he said, there are so many parallels between the Christian world and even the Jewish people, because God has two programs up and running right now simultaneously at the same time, a program and plan for Israel and a program and a plan for the church. And even though we know what the end is about and we know how this story ends, getting through this process is like walking through inky black darkness where you just cannot see truth. And that seems to be what's happening at the highest levels of government across the world, not just in America, but across the world.
Well, the only thing I can say is, Jeff, there's not really and truly, there's not much truth out there now. We're in spiritual warfare. It's witchcraft. It's all kinds of plagues of darkness. So our only hope is we grow closer to the Lord. I mean, if you ever needed to go to church, it's now. Because I know a lot of people say, I don't need to go to church. No, well, the only thing I can tell you is if we ever needed to go to church, it's now, as we come together as believers to encourage one another. And we're going to have to carve, I think, out some time to get together as believers to encourage one another to learn the truth of God, because we are not in a peaceful world anymore.
No, we're not.
Sorry about that. Rowland, we just run out of time, buddy. Any closing comments you have?
Yes, I would like to thank all of our worldwide fans for your support. And I would also like to say, keep tuning in to the Smith and Rowland podcast, for it is here that we will set the standard for all truth and wipe away all fear and tears from your eyes.
Well, let me identify our worldwide listeners that Mr. Rowland is talking about there. We got one in Kazakhstan. We got two in Bergamo. And I think we've got one and half of his family in Zinzendorf. So there's our worldwide following. But thank you very much, Mr. Rowland, for extending our international ministry.
I'll also say we have one in Burke County, mind you. So right there, you left that one out.
Well, my apologies. Okay, Rowland. Behave, buddy.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining today's Smith and Rowland Show. You can check out our website at kingdompropheticsociety.org and our daily unplugged podcast at smithandrowlandshow.podbean.com. You can also join us on Amazon, Apple, or Spotify.